to say just completely rephrase my question. Anyway, sorry.
No,
sorry, everybody.
That's right. Sorry.
Private conversation.
Yes, indeed. Hey, well, good morning, or I guess it's good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Tyler. I am the Director and Fire Chief here at CAL FIRE, and with me today are some distinguished speakers that are going to be speaking after me from Cal OES, the California Natural Resources Agency, and then, of course, Honorable Governor Gavin Newsom will be speaking in that order. Welcome again to our Aviation Management Unit here at McClellan Air Park in Sacramento, California. You know, it is so often that we talk about where we are at with fire suppression and the resources that are available and the investments that have been made. Really, it has been around a lot of the activity as additional fire engines by all of our organizations, additional S-70I Firehawk helicopters like those sitting behind me, the addition of C-130s that we have here sitting at McClellan and Sacramento and now in Ramona and San Diego County, and of course the addition of 2,400 firefighters over the next 3 additional years, fiscal years, in addition to the 2 that we've already had, that really are building the response and prevention aspects about what we as a state agency, what we are doing as a whole of government to be able to come together and talk about how we are protecting the people and resources of California. But what we don't talk about so often, and what we're here for today, is really talk about some of that technology that is behind the scenes that really allow us to build upon not only the suppression efforts, but the prevention efforts and the early detection efforts to get the suppression resources to the fire even more quickly. You know, we find ourselves here in Sacramento where we see overcast skies, where we are in a space in the 3rd week of July that we find ourselves having more humidity, more cloud cover, and typically this is when we start seeing some of the monsoonal moisture move across California to start giving us both moisture with lightning. Sometimes that lightning is dry. And so from the local, state, federal, and tribal level, we are here together as a California Fire Service to make sure that we're protecting the people and the natural resources that we have here. There are really 4 fires that are going on right now across California, 4 large fires that are, or extended fires that are going on across California. A couple of those are here locally. The Rumsey Fire in Yolo County started yesterday, the Chute Fire in Yuba County. Then last night we had a large fire kick off due to high winds and from passing thunderstorms in Inyo County in the Mammoth Lakes Independence area. And then north of Susanville, we have the Bsky Fire. It's a federal fire that's burning in Lassen County. The reason those are important is we really talk about 4 large fires, but over the last week, over the last 7 days, there have been, just in state and federal jurisdiction, not including small fires that may be occurring within incorporated cities, there has been 277 new fires that we don't talk about. Well, we don't talk about 273 of those new fires. And that is because the suppression resources, the detection resources, the technology that we have really is moving us in that direction, that we put those fires out early and then none of us have to talk about them. We continue to support our federal partners, as I said, on fires across the state and outside of the state. We between Cal OES and ourselves, have sent fire engines and resources out of the state, including Colorado and Oregon, where the Colorado resources, at least for CAL FIRE, are on their way back. They should be back this afternoon, and the Oregon resources will be gone for a little bit more. But one thing we're not doing when we're allowing our resources to either respond to fires here locally, across the state, or even out of the state, is we're not letting our guard down. We're not making sure that we are not prepared. In fact, our public education campaigns, our readiness, make sure that we are very prepared, because it's important that each of us and each of you are prepared for wildfire. You know, we want to make sure that you're listening to law enforcement for evacuation notices, listening to the firefighters for evacuation notices, signing up for emergency alert and warnings that are available from your local municipalities. We want to make sure that you are going to websites like Ready for Wildfire to be prepared for wildfire, or to fire.ca.gov, or even CalOES.CA.Gov to get more information on fires that are actively occurring. Related to the technology, CAL FIRE is leaning in and taking advantage of the power of technology that best supports our firefighting efforts, and a lot of that has been done in the last 8 years, last 5 years that I've been the director, really seeing a huge advancement from this legislature and this administration, from modeling software that quickly provides prediction and fire spread, to upgraded aircraft with a larger payload, to mountaintop cameras with AI technology, to beat the first 911 callers, to be able to report into our dispatch centers of a new fire and move those resources more quickly. Today, you see some of the resources that we're using, some of the technology that we're using here in front of us. The UAS, or uncrewed aerial systems, maximizes situational awareness and tactical effectiveness. It'll do mapping, perimeter mapping, prescribed fire activities, and fuels reduction are just a few of those. We've been able to use the UAS sitting here for direct fire protection capabilities, large payload, being able to move. And then, as we've talked about before, 1,260 mountaintop cameras through Alert California. It's a publicly available website that you can find to see these 1,260 cameras that are located across the state that feed into our dispatch centers and, again, are publicly available. There's 200 more of those cameras that will be put up here this year to assist in that. Our updated AI detection model is showing improved accuracy. And then above the cameras in Alert California, really being able to do fuels assessment, be able to help in LIDAR, or really vegetation growth that's occurring across California. And that's in cooperation with UC San Diego to be able to accomplish that. So as the technology advances, it's important that we continue to advance with that technology. Otherwise, the technology is going to advance so much faster than us. CAL FIRE remains an early adopter and is supporting Earth Fire Alliance to leverage what we're calling FireSat. Now, we don't have any satellites here, but just here about 2 weeks ago from Vandenberg Air Force Base, there was a launch of 3 additional low Earth orbiting satellites that'll become part of a constellation of satellites that will do early detection utilizing all the features of remote sensing, both mountaintop cameras, fixed-wing aircraft, and satellite technology to really detect new heat images across California. And that technology is going to be used across California, the United States. Some data feeding in already from those 4 that are in the sky. 1 was launched last year in Australia and British Columbia. The FireSat is moving towards its operational alignment, and preparing for larger data ingestion is the goal there. So our technology will continue to support fighting fires, but not only fight fires, but the prevention and preventive opportunities that are so important. It's so important that the public is, I'm going to take this opportunity, as the public is listening here today, we need your help. We need your help as we are at the peak of the fire year. And as we see the monsoonal moisture and we see the lightning coming in here probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and we will combat that everybody has to be prepared for wildfire. Doing their defensible space, strengthening and hardening their home, or making their home more wildfire prepared is so important. Again, signing up for those alert and warnings are also important. So it's going to take all of us as a team coming together to be able to build that resilience of living with wildfire in California. So with that, it is an honor to now introduce and bring up my esteemed colleague from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, Director Caroline Thomas-Jacobs.
Thank you, Chief Tyler. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak with all of you today. And thank you to CAL FIRE for hosting us here today. So as mentioned, my name is Caroline Thomas-Jacobs, Director of the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. And thank you, Governor Newsom, for bringing us here together and continuing to invest in the people, the partnerships, and the technology that's protecting California communities. This technology allows us to anticipate risk, detect early, respond faster, and recover quickly. And I've said this in the past, when it comes to wildfire, preparedness is power and partnership is everything. Today, I'd like to add that technology gives us the power to prepare earlier, to respond faster, and make better decisions when every second counts. CAL FIRE and local fire departments lead the fight on the ground and in the air. And at the Office of Emergency Services, our job is to connect all of those agencies and the statewide emergency response system. We bring together the intelligence, the technology, and the mutual aid to anticipate threats, to position resources, and to rapidly deliver assistance where and when it is needed most. That work begins before a fire starts. The Wildfire Forecast and Threat Intelligence Integration Center, commonly known as the WFTIC, serves as California's central hub for wildfire forecasting and threat intelligence. The WFTIC combines weather data, fuels conditions, fire behavior modeling, lightning forecasts, and other information to identify where wildfire risk is increasing across the state. The WFTIC then turns that information, that intelligence, into timely, actionable intelligence products that we then share across our partner network so that first responders and emergency managers can make informed decisions before we even have an ignition. The WFTIC also coordinates this information sharing among federal, state, local, tribal agencies, as well as universities and nonprofit organizations. It's important to note, though, that no single agency can confront California's wildfire challenges alone. It is by bringing together the data, the expertise, and the strong partnerships that WFTIC helps people, that California, to stay one step ahead of these emerging threats. So this intelligence, one of the things it does is it helps us do more than just understand the threat, but also it helps us act before the fire starts. Cal OES has integrated this intelligence into an online pre-positioning decision support tool that is available to all of our fire partners to make smarter decisions about where they can place their resources before that ignition starts. And this California pre-positioning program is saving lives. It's allowing local agencies to increase the staffing and strategically place firefighters, engines, water tenders, and other equipment closer to communities facing dangerous fire weather. And in these fast-moving wildfire minutes matter. By strengthening the local capacity, reducing response times, and supporting more aggressive initial attack, pre-positioning can mean the difference between where a fire is quickly contained so that we can avoid the major disaster. This year, Cal OES has already approved pre-positioning for 20 counties and 213 pieces of equipment, as well as over 1,400 personnel. And when a fire does start, technology gives responders a clearer and faster picture of what is happening. Cal OES has a fire-integrated real-time intelligence system, commonly known as FIRIS. The FIRIS plane is outside this hangar. And it provides real-time fire modeling within minutes of ignition, now supporting every California county. The sensors mounted on the fixed-wing aircraft collect information about a fire's location, the direction, and the potential rate of spread. And any fire agency can request us to fly, and we will be in the air in minutes, providing real-time perimeter and live overflight video. This allows decision makers to see the critical information and make faster choices, from deploying resources to issuing evacuation orders. And since its launch, FIRIS has flown over 2,000 missions, supporting wildfires, hazardous materials incidents, oil spills, and search and rescue missions. This year alone, FIRIS has already flown 263 missions across 41 counties. And better information is only valuable if we can turn it into action. Cal OES oversees the largest fire and rescue mutual aid system of its kind in the nation, and it connects more than 1,000 partner agencies and gives California access to over 1,000 fire engines and thousands more personnel. This year, Cal OES has already moved more than 500 engines with over 1,700 firefighters and 500 specialized personnel throughout the system to ensure that we're responding to the incidents as there's need. When an incident exceeds one community's resources, Cal OES helps us move personnel and equipment across jurisdictions to where they are needed most. A real-time resource dashboard, another piece of technology that we've implemented, allows us greater visibility into the mutual aid process, the requests, and the available resources, helping us expedite the movement as conditions change. That coordination extends beyond California. As Oregon confronts significant wildfire activity, California, as Chief Tyler has mentioned, has committed 40 fire engines and over 160 personnel. We're also expanding from air to the space. Through our partnership with ISI, Cal OES has access to a network of over 70 satellites that are capable of gathering information during day or night and through cloud and smoke. And following a wildfire, this technology can help produce preliminary structure damage assessments within 6 to 24 hours, which enables us to make better and faster decisions around how we can support the local community in that response. And this satellite capability complements our on-the-ground inspection by helping local leaders understand an emergency's potential scope and begin planning for recovery sooner. We are also expediting funding. So through the Fire Management Assistance Grant, or commonly known as an FMAG, local responders can get access to additional funds to augment the response to the fire. At Cal OES, we've released a new technology and online tool to expedite that request process and review process so that we can more expeditiously respond and provide that approval. During the Sandy Fire in Ventura County in May, that tool helped California secure approval quickly as hundreds of structures were threatened, and ultimately the firefighters were able to hold the damage to one structure. And when you put all of these technologically enabled resources together, we have more accurate forecasts. We're moving ahead of the risk, and when an ignition starts, we're getting more resources to the fire quickly. And while government and first responders have an important responsibility to prepare, and we are, every Californian has a role to play and the power to protect themselves and their family during these types of events. Since 2021, Cal OES has invested over $100 million in the Ready California campaign, generating more than 13 million engagements across the 58 counties. And I encourage you to go to Ready.CA.Gov to learn more about how you can make an emergency plan for evacuations, know your evacuation routes, and make sure you have the supplies and never forget your pets. And most importantly, double downing on what Chief Tyler mentioned, please, please, please make sure that you are signing up for emergency alerts. It's vitally important that everyone has access to the alerting information and make sure that you've got those alerts on and that your phone is powered and turned on at night. So our technology is helping us see danger sooner, and our partnerships are helping us act on that information together. And as an informed and prepared public makes our community safer. So with that, I thank you all, and I will turn it to Secretary Crowfoot.
Thank you. I'm Wade Crowfoot, and I serve as California Natural Resources Secretary. The technology that we're featuring today and the investments that it required are more important than ever because wildfire conditions are worse than they've ever been. This summer is just the most recent example. Record-breaking temperatures across Europe fuel catastrophic deadly wildfire, prompting Spanish wildfire authorities to explain that this fire is behaving as they've never seen it before. The cool, wet boreal forest in northern Canada, the world's largest forest, experiencing catastrophic wildfire over the last 3 years that was once inconceivable. It is scientific fact that these worsening conditions are driven by climate change. It was on this airbase 6 years ago that the sitting president denied this fact and told us, you'll see, it will be cooler, it will get cooler. Well, in fact, it's gotten hotter. Since 2020, each year has landed in the top 10 hottest years in recorded history. Overall, across the world, we've seen a multi-digit increase in temperatures over the last 3 years that world governments came together to avoid when they established the Paris Climate Accord 10 years ago. This Climate change and increasing temperatures has driven record-breaking heat waves, not only in California and across the American West, but across the world. Why does that matter? Because hotter temperatures and worsening heat waves exacerbate wildfire danger. They dry soils and vegetation that has effectively extended the worst or the height of our wildfire season in California and the rest of the world. And they create conditions like being experienced in Europe this summer during heat waves that create tinderbox conditions for catastrophic deadly wildfire to break out. It's no accident that the driest 3 years in California's history, between 2020 and 2022, were among our worst years for catastrophic wildfire. We know that the LA firestorms of less than 2 years ago became as dangerous and deadly because Los Angeles had experienced its driest year in recorded history. Acknowledging this reality, this scientific fact of climate change, is critically important, as is working to better understand it. This year, the state will complete its 6th science climate assessment, where we are investing with the best and brightest scientific minds in understanding how climate change is impacting our state and specifically exacerbating wildfire risk. Scientific understanding protects people. And it drives us to work faster, more broadly, and more creatively to protect people, which is where this technology comes in. The satellites that my colleagues have talked about will not only benefit California and protect our residents, but will be available to governments and regions around the world, including those places like Australia and Chile and the European Mediterranean that are experiencing this unprecedented wildfire behavior. We're pairing this technology with international collaboration at a time of international conflict. The governor and previous governors have established agreements, including with the nation of Canada, currently suffering wildfires that has resulted in technical exchange. Chile, Australia. Our state was a founding member of the Mediterranean Climate Action Partnership, bringing together 15 governments from 5 different continents, specifically to focus on how we help each other protect our residents from wildfire, droughts, and heat waves. And even this month, German wildfire fighters are on the ground learning from CAL FIRE practices. So investments and technology in California, yes, but collaboration, which really manifests most visibly in the mutual aid that our heroes from CAL FIRE and mutual aid agencies are providing. Recently this summer in Colorado, as well as Oregon and Washington. At a time when some leaders finger point and criticize those in crisis, California is proud to have the back of those jurisdictions that are experiencing this catastrophic wildfire, just as so many places around the world came to California's aid recently. So this technology that you see here was in large part seeded by an action that Governor Newsom took in his first day of office, January 8th, 2019, initiated a wildfire innovation sprint at CAL FIRE. And I'll say, as the agency leader working to support CAL FIRE, it was a catalytic moment that really set CAL FIRE on an arc to learn and integrate this technology that's now saving lives in California and beyond. He also, it's worth noting, issued that week an emergency proclamation to streamline wildfire safety projects to get those on the ground faster, and then made the first major budget increase and investment that continued in recent years thanks to partnership with the legislature, billions of dollars towards expanding boots on the ground, deploying technologies like these, and then taking actions with fuel breaks and wildfire safety projects before wildfire ever hits. So I'm proud to welcome Governor Newsom to the podium to share thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Well, welcome back. This is almost, I think, well, we tend to do this biannually, come together and mark our progress, our common interest, celebrate some success, and soberly mark the struggles that continue we continue to face, not just here in California, but as Wade just laid out, all across the nation, around the world. It's interesting just to consider that right now, most of our resources are deployed in other states, in states like Texas to help with the floods, and Colorado, resources still there from California, about 100 apparatus up in Oregon alone in our support of that mutual aid system that you just heard about. That's part of the DNA that defines the work we do here, CAL FIRE OES, in partnership with other agencies across the United States. But one of the things that we wanted to mark as well was progress. As Wade just noted, we started on a journey anew to really focus with laser-like focus on technology, looking at areas where we were strong, areas where we were weak. I can say this with absolute conviction. We don't imitate. We're a model for others. We have people coming from all over the United States and around the globe to look at what California is doing in orbit, in the air, and on the ground. You heard from the chief, you heard from the director of OES some of the highlights. Last September, we launched that first satellite. We did launch that first damn satellite. Our own 3 additional satellites are up there. There'll be more shortly. We have partnerships across the spectrum, from the Department of War and Pentagon on early detection, to partnerships, as was noted by the OES director, that are global, some that are taking shape. We have 31 international competitors now, with a new prize that the Gordon Betty Moore Foundation put up in partnership with CAL FIRE to look at additional data collection to continue to stay a step ahead. We did just that with Technosilver, our first AI predictive technology that went through that RFI2 process that Wade was describing, which was this innovative sprint to procurement so that we could test technologies in real time, and we didn't go through that multi-year labyrinth of RFQs, RFIs, and RFPs to delay the progress that obviously we are promoting. One of the critical things that we also are mindful of is that it's also about people, not just technology. We have doubled the size of CAL FIRE, about 11,500 personnel, just shy. That's almost double when I got here. Our investment's $3.8 billion in the current budget. It was a little over $2 billion when I started. That's where the money went. It went into personnel, went into equipment, went into the largest civilian aerial firefighting fleet in the world. The 7 C-130s, 4 that are operational, 2 more that will get done by the end of the calendar year. 17 Firehawks. When I got here, we weren't flying at night. We now are flying at night with the night technology. That was determinative in some of the fights, even in Southern California. It could have been even more catastrophic. The work we're doing across the spectrum, including what you see here with the drones, is best in class. These drones, by the way, are drones that also highlight some of the progress we've made on prescribed burns. People continue to have old talking points about California. Need to do more prescribed burns. Well, we've doubled the prescribed burns since 2021. We've 10x'd. And I'll remind you of this when inevitably the President of the United States will put out a tweet saying otherwise. Let's get the facts straight before the lies are perpetrated. We've 10x'd our vegetation and forest management. We fast-tracked the efforts. That was what Wade just referenced. That first executive order I signed as governor of California in Colfax, California, to fast-track our vegetation and forest management so we didn't have to go through the labyrinth of a long-winded ERI process. We created a new dashboard. We exceeded our goals on completed and treated vegetation management. You can go to that dashboard today to see the interagency collaboration from federal agents to state to private in terms of treated acres and completed acreage. 3.7 million now have been treated in the last number of years. And just to give you a proof point on the 10x, from $20 million a year in vegetation management and annual funding to $200 million, and then unprecedented one-time investments that total $2.5 billion just in the last number of years to, quote unquote, yes, I'll say it, rake our forests. Not lost on me that the President of the United States just imposed a 50% tariff to increase your costs, because he said that Canada didn't do enough to rake their forests. That was just promoted by the president yesterday. You can't make that up. Of course, not surprising here in California. These talking points are getting exhausting. We continue to believe in science. We continue to believe in investments in human capital, and innovation is at the core of who we are. The Virus, there's 2 of those planes, there's actually 3. There's a backup plane. Those are best in class, went into full effect in 2020. That's an envy for people across the country. The WITTIC work we're doing in terms of prediction allows us to pre-position assets, likes of which few jurisdictions in the country are able to do. So across the spectrum, I'm very proud of OES, very proud of CAL FIRE. The artificial intelligence is not just on predictive technology like Technosilva, but it's also as it relates to some of the work we're doing on the ground. It's part of that alert network of 1,260 cameras. 915 now are AI enabled. And as Joe said, we're getting phone calls not from people to 911, but we're getting alerted by those cameras and artificial intelligence before even one phone call is made. Yes, we want to see more investment in the technology, not just the deployment of the technology, as it relates to drones and suppression. We continue to pilot different proposals and companies that are interested in this space. Most of it currently is for the built environment, for the urban interface in some cities and some countries, but not for the wildlands. So we're continuing to test that technology. You may have seen on their website a few weeks ago some of that technology being tested. We read about technologies around the globe. We make the phone calls. You've got an Iron Dome of sorts, and we're interested in at least seeing if it works. But again, we're looking at scale here. 58% of the lands, I'll remind you, in California are federal. So it's all about partnership. We have just a very small percentage, less than 5% of all of the responsibility for forest management, but we do the job of the federal government in partnership through a memorandum of understanding and shared stewardship to do more to meet the needs that the federal government is unable to meet. So across the spectrum, real progress has been made, unprecedented investments, but technology has been at the forefront. And so that's what we wanted to underscore. And I'll say this on a personal basis, because so often I hear fire people say, well, it's 21st century. I hope, why aren't you investing in 21st century technology? And they say, we're doing it. And we constantly have to remind people that this is a state that is on the cutting edge in terms of these tools. But we also have humility in this space, and we recognize good enough never is, and we're constantly seeking out additional partnerships and seeking out new technologies to continue to stay on the cutting edge. I'll end on this. Look, we're as dumb as we want to be. Everything about the world we're living in, you get me started on, seeding the future, the dominance, and new technologies. We're speaking about new technologies as it relates to alternatives to combustion engines. We're ceding that to China. And it's about statecraft for them. It's about dominating supply chains. It's about flooding the zones on tech stack, not just high-quality vehicles around the globe. We double down on stupid, and we roll back tailpipe emissions so we can pollute the planet more. Short-termism. So we actually can exacerbate the very problem we're trying to mitigate and address. Doubling down on stupid and complete denialism that climate change is real, as if there's a Democratic thermometer and a Republican thermometer. We're just fundamentally have a different mindset. We believe in science, but we also believe in our own eyes. I'll continue to remind people, and not just in folks up there in Paradise, but Grizzly Flats, Greenville, the places wiped off the map, lifestyles, traditions impacted. It's about culture. It's about people. And it's also about the economy. Climate risk is financial risk. You can't insure it. And so I hope people start connecting dots, not just to the fires, not just the acuity of the crisis as it relates to the impacts we're feeling and the heat and the stress, but also to the economy, to a geopolitical future where we don't have to be dependent on a Gulf somewhere or straight somewhere else. And we can truly have resilient supply chains. We could dominate on technology stack, merit-made technology, and continue to diversify our energy flows at the same time addressing some of the need not to have to make these unprecedented investments on the back end, but to start to prevent the very thing that we're trying to address. So forgive that editorial, but I feel it's appropriate at a time where we have $4 gas again nationally, and we see $90 cost in barrel, and we have a war of choice that seems quite literally endless. One of the worst mistakes in modern American history by a president who's way out of his league, including on this subject that brings us together here today. With that, we're happy to answer any questions. Yeah, it's peril and promise that you're addressing at the same time. It's, truth and trust. And we've been trying to balance both. As you know, we're the first state in the nation to lead SB 53 with regulating frontier models, large language models. We were the first, and we now are seeing other states, including just recently Illinois, taking it a next step further. We've seen states like New York follow California's lead. I'm proud of that. We still need to do more. The Trump administration's approach is let it rip. Ours is a little bit more cautious. Same time, we're trying to find that balance, always striking that balance, but also talking about its promise and promoting the promise of what AI is delivering in this space and across the spectrum as it relates to what is being promoted, as it relates to solving the issues of ignorance, as it relates to education, poverty, as it relates to creating more autonomy in terms of opportunities and access to information and the tools that this technology promotes, but also disease as it relates to the issue of healthcare and the breakthroughs that AI promises. So it's finding that balance, continuing to promote both and. Also, I should highlight, also preparing for the worst case in the spirit of disaster response, always preparing for the worst case scenario, and that was represented in an executive order I recently advanced. As you know, we're piloting programs to reform our WARN Act, which we just highlighted, to create a new framework around unemployment insurance, to pilot employment insurance to keep people employed, to look at portable benefits, to look at different strategies to address the anxieties around large-scale job displacement if that takes shape. No evidence at the moment that has taken shape, but none of us are naive as it relates to the prospect that we may be one upgrade away from that presenting itself at scale. And California wants to lead in that conversation, and we are. And that executive order is already taking shape with these pilots in place. And we're hoping to scale some additional announcements, or at least announce the scale of additional component parts of that executive order in the near future. Well, I've said this on multiple occasions. You can't save democracy unless we democratize the economy. People need to have an ownership stake. We put a stake in the ground years and years ago, about 5.5 years ago. 5.5 million Californians are eligible for a college and career savings account, the first in the nation. Trump just recently modeled our program at the national level. I applaud that work. We believe in universal basic capital as opposed to universal basic income as an approach, pre-distribution, not just redistribution in the vernacular of addressing some of the macro issues around wealth and income disparities. That pre-distribution, we believe, begins as it relates to not only access to these accounts, but also funding the accounts beyond just the seed of the $1.9 billion we put in the program and the ongoing few hundred million that we continue to provide. And that's where we're looking at this notion of equity, sovereign wealth, looking to broaden access, particularly as it relates to the abundance that we anticipate will take shape in the AI space. And a lot of people now are talking about this, and far left, Bernie Sanders is now talking about this. Even Donald Trump has talked about this. And I think it's a very healthy conversation, a very healthy debate. People need to feel they have a stake in the future. Otherwise, more nihilism will take shape. And so I think this is foundational. We've set the foundation up. We have created something that is unique in the nation. The nation is building off of that, which is encouraging. We want to promote those accounts, federal accounts, as we promote our accounts. And then we want to promote this opportunity to start to get shares, to start to get equity, and share that abundance. Sam Altman himself has talked about this at OpenAI. We need to see more than rhetoric in this space. We would like to see some real investment. But again, this is an area of broad stroke agreement with the president, and I'm encouraged the fact that he's having those conversations as well with one eye open, because he tends to have those conversations and he's looking to somehow pad his own nest. And there's usually something corrupt that happens in those conversations that we have to be cautious about. But those, nonetheless, are important conversations to have. But I hope he has it with the kind of transparency that is worthy of that office. Sorry, Ashley. One second. Yeah, I believe localism is determinative. It's a local planning decision, and I think that's appropriate. I also think it's absolutely essential and appropriate that these hyperscalers pay their fair share, that they're funding the socialized costs up front, that any upgrades as relates to transmission is on their dime, not the public's dime, that the water consumption issues are substantively addressed, and that any increase as it relates to utility bills is also addressed up front, and that's local government's responsibility to negotiate those deals. Now, as it relates to California, these large hyperscale data centers have not been the dominant investment that we've seen over the last few decades in California. We tend to have different latency issues. We tend to have data centers, hundreds that we have already installed in California, that are much more modest in scale compared to some states like, well, the ones proposed in Utah, what's happening in Texas, what's happened, where 25% of all the electricity consumption in the entire state of Virginia is taking shape. We now have a few new projects that are more approximate to those larger scales, notably in Imperial County, that now have re-engaged a different conversation and dialogue. And we support that dialectic. PUC has been directed through legislation that I signed a number of months ago to come out with recommendations to create statewide parameters. And there are a number of bills in the legislature that are currently being debated in this space. And we've taken a very flexible and non-ideological approach to engaging legislative leaders on this issue. At the same time, I fundamentally believe localism is determinative, and the baseline should be contribution. If you're Microsoft, you can afford to make those contributions. You're Google, you can afford to make those contributions, and that should be the minimum table stakes as it relates to any of these hyperscalers making those kinds of investments. Ashley? Yes. Nope. Yeah. No. It's inevitable. Come on. I mean, who we're dealing with. Oh, Anton will be hurt, but maybe he defers to you. I mean, I think you have to choose just one. No, of course, all of you. This is me publicly putting Joe on the spot. 2 by the end of the year, right, Joe? 1 he knows for sure, and then I said, I said maybe I'll, we'll try to delay the swearing in of the next governor until the 6th. But no, I'm working on 6. 5, I'm confident. I'm just putting a lot of stress on him. But we've got 7, as you know. We had a delay. It was years and years of delay in the Pentagon, and we decided enough was enough, and we finally took the assets under our own jurisdiction, and finally we're moving these forward. And so I'm very proud of the work they've done to already get 4 of these things up with the CAL FIRE logo. It's a point of pride. No other state can lay claim to that kind of investment. We'll get 5 by the end of the year for sure, and Joe thinks he can get to 6, depending how mild the wildfire season is, so he has time. It's a day that ends in a Y. And why they're doing it is pure politics. You know that. Everybody knows it. It's ready, fire, aim. They didn't even assert. They said, well, something is wrong. We said, what is it? They said, well, we don't know. Provide us information. We said, well, is it the same information you requested a few months ago that we're in the process of providing that you said should be sent to us by the end of July? We said, well, and they said, yes. I said, well, then what's the point of the theater? And you know exactly what the point was. Who was their emphasis today? They didn't even know his name, but last name's Becerra, because they know he's a candidate for office in California. I mean, come on. This is exhausting. I've never seen anything like this. And so we'll work through the process. We take fraud seriously. We don't politicize it like these guys. Always have. Open hand, not a closed fist. We've been working with them in good faith. They have issues with IHSS, and our issue is, why not IHSS? We believe in keeping people at home, dignity in place, is a way of not only helping community and families and seniors and those with disabilities, but also to save the taxpayers money. We have one of the lowest rates of growth in skilled nursing facilities, which saves the taxpayers. It costs about $100,000 more to have someone in a SNF than it does in home care. So we have emphasized and prioritized that space. They're emphasizing prioritizing 2 states on their hit list. That has consistently been on their hit list. But we nonetheless are working with them in the spirit that you deserve, which is a collaborative one. And we're providing the information and have been and will continue to try to root out any corruption and fraud that we see. And if they see something we're not seeing, we'll celebrate and applaud them. And none of us are naive about what's going on out there, all across the country, on their watch. Not just our watch. And so we're going to maintain our vigilance. But that press conference was pretty self-evident to anybody that was born with objectivity, or at least maintains objectivity. You, them, us. Come on. Look, I'm a little, I don't know if it's time of life or my state of mind, but I'm deeply mindful that, that we have a crisis, a lot of crises in this country. One of them is crisis of loneliness. People not feeling connected. I want people to come back to work, re-engage, rediscover, collaborate, coordinate, develop relationships, friendships, fall in love, go down, build a sense of community, support that, poor sandwich shop, where the immigrant family came here 20 years ago and, put everything on the line for riches and new beginnings, and they're barely holding on because everybody left. The downtown cores have been hollowed out. And all I'm asking for is, you get 3-day weekends. You still do. 4 years ago, that would have been a triumph. Now it's some burden. So respectfully, I have a different point of view. I believe it's, as a taxpayer, you deserve it, but I also believe it's better for people. And we make exceptions. If there's legitimate exceptions, we'll make them, but not blanket exceptions. I want to see people back at work. I want people re-engaged. You know, that's where magic happens. That's where creativity happens. With all due respect, doesn't happen on Zoom. And Zoom's impressive. But, you know, I don't know that the world's great breakthroughs have happened online. They didn't happen when people mash things up from different backgrounds and they come together and something sparks in the hallway, not during the meeting, in the conversation after work. You know, maybe walking in with that cup of coffee and spills on someone and all of a sudden a new relationship is formed. That's my mindset. And so I know it's hard, but I don't think it's asking much. You get your 3 days. Give us the 4. And I think you're going to find something special on the other side. I really believe that. One of the best things that happened to our office is getting everybody back to work. People just seem happier again and more fulfilled. And to the extent that people need to be accommodated, we accommodate them. Again, I don't know what kind of world I'm living in, but I don't know that that's some great burden. So that's my humble opinion. Forgive me. It's very well defined because I haven't backed off on this in over a year, 2 years, and I'm glad it's finally taking place. No, it's not. That's not the way I think. This is an organization representing. These are people I've worked with, done incredible work with these guys. Created the first child care bargaining unit in the nation. You know, we provided $25 minimum wage for healthcare workers, $20 for fast food work with this same union, IHSS. You know, other workers in that same union. So we have a great partnership. It's not, you know, they're not sparring partners; they're working partners. I just want to see people working again, and I don't know that it's too much to ask. And look, I got a sell-by date, so you know, we'll see what the next administration thinks, and I hope they hold, well, stay the course. Yeah, I mean, well, we're working with the legislature to make it a felony to interfere with the election count, and I have no expectation we're not. I mean, look, Donald Trump's going to do everything to try to steal this election. He was unhinged the other night. That was 25th Amendment stuff. He was unhinged. I mean, thank God for the, you know, broken clock, but even the Wall Street Journal editorial board, the New York Post, even recognized that, which is extraordinary. He was unhinged. Unfounded allegations of election fraud. It's madness. But he's setting it up. He's setting you all up. You know what he's doing. He's doing it in plain sight. He's socializing all of this to normalize all of this. And he's going to have masked men in and around polling places, just as he did in Los Angeles last November. BORTAC teams that were sent out before the polls were open. Border Patrol tactical units. He said on that same election day that the election was rigged. No evidence of that. Sent out Department of Justice personnel to find something anomaly, and then went to try to get to the Supreme Court to throw out the election. This guy's not screwing around. That's what he will do this November at scale. He doesn't believe in fair and free elections. He believes only in competitive authoritarianism. He wants to have an election, but he wants the election that Putin has, where he gets 87.3%, and the next guy gets 4.6%. That's what Trump believes. He doesn't believe in fair and free. He doesn't. That's what that's what it's all about. He wants to pick and choose who votes. So, you know, we have to be vigilant. This is the same guy who did vote by mail. I mean, this is pathetic that anyone is defending the ramblings of this madness, this madman on this topic. It's the core of who we are, fair and free elections. He's doing everything to undermine that. So we're going to be forthright, vigilant, continue to call this out. Shirley Weber's tough, and she's, you know, it can be slow and painful, yes, are counts. But we believe every vote counts. And we want to make sure every vote was counted appropriately, which means we're verifying signatures. We have a process that's well defined. I want to improve that process. We want to continue to work with the legislature to fast track that process, absolutely. In fact, I passed legislation, or we passed legislation a year ago. I signed it to compel those counts to come in faster. We want it still faster. And that's resources. And so working with the legislature on providing additional resources to the counties to move forward more expeditiously, which is absolutely appropriate. But this is a serious moment. We have a malignant president, and when it comes to these issues, and all of us need to be on guard. At peril, we lose our republic.
I do have a follow-up to that. Since you mentioned authority, have you already looked by George Orwell, Animal Farm, 1945, and where you went as far as what might be happening?
I was debating Orwell versus Huxley today, and Haxman's version of Huxley's work around authoritarianism coming through fear or authoritarianism coming through pleasure in relationship to artificial intelligence. I'm connecting a few dots here, at least in contemporary terms that I was debating it today. As it relates to Animal Farm, I haven't really thought that through, but I appreciate your reference, and I'll have to consider that more fully to give you a more honest response. I was an old Cliff Note guy. I don't use Cliff Notes anymore. I use Claude. Well, it's completely naive because Ashley's been there at 4 press conferences during the budgets and has asked me what's my position on billionaires tax. I say we should have a national debate for years and years before you got up here. So you should rewind the tape on that. I've been very consistent on this. And I believe it's a race to the bottom at states. We're competing with other states. Wake up. And so you can't tax something that's left. I mean, forgive me. I'm governor of the state of California. I have a fiduciary responsibility, moral, formal role and responsibility, relationship to this state. And, I made a mistake maybe, because maybe most folks it's just virtue signaling. It's easier not to know, claim ignorance, but I actually read the initiative. I actually know what it does. By the way, so did the teachers. So did our firefighters that oppose it. Not just me. Teachers oppose it. Firefighters oppose it. Overwhelming majority of labor opposes the billionaires tax in California. Many of them share the same point of view I have as it relates to a tax system that is like a tribute system to the rich that needs to be reformed federally. Donald Trump did tremendous damage with the big, beautiful bill. And, he saddled the debt issues they're just outsized under the Trump administration. Forgive me, spare me the morality about balanced budgets. Look at the Trump administration. And what this guy did with the tax system for billionaires and now trillionaires didn't even ask for a tax cut. Got it. We've got $124 trillion of generational wealth that's going to pass over the next few decades. And a lot of it's going to be passing tax-free. That's not what our founding fathers lived and died for. You have these lifestyle loans. People can borrow against their assets without ever paying taxes and buy yachts and airplanes and, hangars like this. That needs to be reformed. Our tax code fundamentally needs to be reformed. I do believe there should be progressive taxes at the federal level. I believe in a progressive tax system. We defend it here, unlike states like Texas and Florida that tax their lowest wage earners more than we tax our highest wage earners. Those are the high tax states. They can't get their arms around that. Not everyone's in the 1%. Folks out there defending the 1% don't seem to give a damn about 99% of you. I believe in a progressive tax system, and I believe that we need a progressive tax rate at the federal level. I believe what Warren Buffett said when he said that he should not be paying less taxes than his secretary. I don't know that people that read your publication believe that, which is jaw-dropping to me. It's actually extraordinary. They care more about folks with that kind of abundance, less about folks that are like themselves, that are hardworking people. That's why I feel when people say it's a rigged system, it starts to feel pretty rigged in that context. Getting a write-off for your private plane? Saddling our kids and grandkids with unbelievable debt so that interest on the debt is one of the most significant contributors to the budget, not investments and low-carbon green growth or fire suppression. I mean, it's honestly, it's Orwellian. And so we'll just keep calling it out, and I'll keep trying to do my job. But on this issue, I've been consistent for years and years and years and years. And that's all I can say in response to your question. I'm sorry. What's that? Well, it's just, we don't know what they said they're withholding it. 167.5, I think. Million. But we knew this weeks ago because we've been working with them. But they decided, again, to make it a thing. So I'm confident we're going to, again, we're trying to be collaborative. Understand, it's ready, fire, aim for them. They're suggesting something, but they haven't even gotten the response from the state. And now they're suggesting it very publicly in order to make, this is politics, and it's politics. To the extent it's substantive, bring it on. We want to work with them, but not with the BS, not this, just this partisanship. And that's what it is, and it. Everyone knows it. But we take the issues very seriously. I don't want any of I'm not a taxpayer. I don't like waste. None of us likes waste, fraud. Come on. The fraud is the Trump administration. The waste is the jaw-dropping abuse to the taxpayers of this failed war in Iran. You want to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse? This is legendary status. Hall of Fame. One of one status. Trump administration on waste. Look at the Pentagon supplemental request. And fraud, the great grift. The Qatari plane that includes almost $1 billion of your taxpayer money. $1 billion. By the way, almost the exact same amount they withheld on Medicaid in California to go to pay for his private plane that he'll be taking with him to the foundation when he leaves. That can't even fly because it's not even safe. The drone companies, the boys are invested in. The mineral companies, the boys are invested in. The sole source contracts from the Department of War that were directed to the family, the Witkoff family, the Kushner family, the Board of Peace, which is about getting a piece of the Middle East. What's the tariffs have to do? Canada tariffs? There's going to be some grift in that, just like there was grift in the tariff relief in Vietnam in order to get the golf course, in order to get the building constructed. When am I coming out with my meme coin? Stable coin. $2.2 billion of net income? Talk to me about waste. Talk about fraud. Talk about abuse. Look in the mirror, Mr. President. Thank you, guys.